Hello everyone, welcome to Radically Loved Radio. I wanted to create a place where people can go to get inspired, get motivated, or find some clarity and get tools to create a radically loved life. I will do my best to provide information on a variety of subjects, including yoga, holistic health, life coaching, spirituality, meditation, and overall mindful living. Each episode will bring you some of the world's best spiritual leaders, entrepreneurs, yoga teachers, coaches, along with some of my closest friends, and we will talk about their life experiences and journeys to create something more out of their lives and how they continue to grow to make that happen. Hey guys, Rosie here. I just want to say I am so grateful that you're listening. We are just getting a massive amount of response on this podcast, and I am so grateful that you're a part of this radically loved community, that you're enjoying the content and that you're enjoying all the guests and that you're still here and you're still working on yourself and your journey and your path. And I pray that you've received some tools listening to the guests or listening to any of my ideas or topics on meditation or yoga and how these tools can help you create a life of purpose. To continue to help us give you the best content, you can subscribe to this podcast, and most of the time you can just do it from your phone, from iTunes. Click subscribe and write a review. This really helps us continue this path and this journey, and we love doing it so much. And again, I'm so grateful that you're here. Let us know what you thought. Thanks for listening. Hungry for Happiness author and podcast host Samantha Skelly joins us today. If you're fighting food, then you'll relate to the vulnerable and heart-wrenching story of Samantha's own battle. She just recently wrote a book about her journey and her path, and I'm so excited to have had this fellow soul sister on. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. We learn all about her story and her ups and downs, and she gave us some tips on how to identify the things that often hold us back from creating the life that we want. I'm so excited to share this episode with you all. Please share it with your friends and let me know what you thought. So, Sam, I'm so excited to have you on. I recently was on your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. You were, girl.
It was such a great conversation, and I think that everything that you're doing, I mean, we're very similar in our journeys and our path, and I wanted to have you on because I wanted to share your story with our audience and just to ask you a couple of questions and to see what kind of insight you can shine upon us. Is that good?
I love it. I'm super excited for that.
Okay, so just to give the listeners a little background, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started Hungry for Happiness?
Yeah. So I grew up. I had a very interesting childhood. It was a pretty weird / crazy childhood. I grew up as a child actress, a dancer, and then I was a stunt double. So basically, my entire existence for the first 18 years of my life was either on a stage or in front of the camera. So it was interesting because when I was going through all of that, I had this pressure to be a certain way and to look a certain way and that kind of thing, but it didn't so much affect my self-esteem, my body, my eating habits, nothing like that. And so when I was 18 years old, I was like, I don't know who I am besides, this actress, dancer. I'm like, I need to really figure out who am I? It's that question of who am I and why am I here? Mm-hmm. So I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada. So I pieced out from Vancouver and I was like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go, rather than go to university like all of my other friends, I'm like, I'm going to go create my education through traveling. I'm going to just travel for 4 years instead. And they're like, you're crazy, but okay. And so I packed a suitcase, or not a suitcase. I packed a backpack, one of those massive backpacks that was larger than me. And the first stop was Australia. And so I went to Australia, and after a few weeks of being there, I started to panic. I was like, whoa, I'm not dancing, 20, 30 hours a week anymore. I don't have this structured lifestyle. And I started to feel like I was losing control of myself, my identity, who I was. I'm like, who am I? Like, what's going on right now? And so I didn't realize it at the time, but it makes perfect sense now. Like, what I was really craving was significance, because I had lost it. And like that feeling of like, I matter, right? Like when I was growing up, it was always like, oh yeah, Sam's the girl who, like, is in Smallville, and she's this dancer, and she's this, and she's in that commercial or whatever. And so there was always that. That fed my ego as a young kid, right? Like, I didn't realize it, but it did. And so when I went to Australia, I lost all that. I was like, well, this sucks. Who am I? And so I started using exercise as like punishment. I started dieting. I was like, as long as I look okay, as long as I still have this body, then I'm still going to be acceptable. I'm still going to have like this feeling of like, I matter. And so I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember that like cabbage soup diet that like everyone and their mom did once upon a time? I don't know. It was
Oh,
like
yes.
basically just
Oh
like
my goodness. Totally. Yes, I do. Everyone
you
was doing
basically
it.
just like, yeah, you like shove your mug full of cabbage soup until
Cabbage.
you lose weight. So
Oh,
yeah, so that
so
was like the
weird.
first diet that I did. I was like on a beach in Australia, and I was like, okay, I need an action plan. I was very like heady, very like, I can like plan this out. And so I went and bought like 6 heads of cabbage, and the lady at the good grocery store was like, what the heck is going on? And so I like went home and I Googled the recipe, and I just started eating cabbage soup, and that was like the first diet that I ever did. And I just became obsessed with dieting. Like, it was literally my full-time job. Like, all I thought about was like, okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? Where can we go? Where can we go next? And so, yeah, it spun me into this, like, I called it my diet depression days, where it was like, I was on over 50 diets in less than 4 years. I was in and out of the hospital. I was just like, did not know how to eat like a normal person. And I like obsessed with food, like just everything, right? I'm like, how many calories are in that? How much do I need to work out in order to burn this off? It was just like so transactional. And I was just completely disconnected from my body. And the interesting part was, at the tail end of this, when it was like at its worst, I was living in London, England, and I had my own fitness company. And it was like a personal training company. And so I was completely out of alignment. Like, I was teaching people how to be healthy, and teaching people, how to like lose weight, whatever. And then I was struggling with it. And I'm like, this feels awful. Like, I have zero right to do this. And all of my like, you're a fraud stuff came up,
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, me teaching people about exercise and eating is fundamentally not going to give them the results that they want, because as soon as they leave me, they're going to go back to their own ways, because it's just human condition. If I'm not actually dealing with the emotional issue as to why you're using food as a drug, then I'm not doing a good job. And so I actually got deported from England,
Oh,
overstayed my visa.
oh
I
my
know.
goodness. What?
It's like literally such a pain in the ass every time I go over there. I
Still
feel like a criminal.
today.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay,
So
you're gonna have to tell me about that.
yeah, I will. I'll explain that. That's a good story. That's fun for the grandchildren. So I flew back to Vancouver, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to date boys. I'm not going to worry about my career. All I need to focus on is getting well. All I need to focus on is, why am I messing with food so much and feeling so disconnected? And so I did that. I spent 3.5 years just working on my relationship to food and my body. And after the 3 years, I was like, oh my gosh, I could finally eat like a normal person. I can finally, feel my intuition. I can finally honor my body. I can listen to what it wants. So after that journey, I was like, wow, I now can see and feel the contrast of how bad it could be versus how good it could get. And that was kind of like, that thought was like the birth of Hungry for Happiness. I didn't know it at the time. And then I just started to like coach people pro bono, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to like talk you through what I did. And I just realized, like, wow, I actually have a gift in this, and I really know how to help people get through this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, 2.5 years later, 3 years later, here we are. And it's been a ride. It's been fun. So that's like the That's like the little story of the
Oh,
birth of the business.
that is so, and it's such a great sort of realization to have in a place where you probably needed it the most. Like, and now you can utilize
Mhm.
those lessons to teach people, to coach people, to work with other people. Like, I mean, I want to
Yeah.
ask you a little bit more about the process of realizing what was happening. Like, there's so
Mhm.
many women out there who struggle with this, right? I mean, it's just like the
Yeah.
norm. Why do you think that
Mhm.
is? I kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's a wide range of reasons. I can kind of explain a few of them, and I'm sure these few examples will resonate with a lot of people. A lot of women who come to me who use food as a drug are had some kind of sexual trauma or something that happened to them in their earlier life. And so what they want to do is they want to create a physical barrier to intimacy. They don't want that to happen again. Therefore, they're going to use food to make their body larger. So
Mm.
that is one of them. And I'm talking about sexual trauma, that could mean like the whole spectrum of severity. Like it doesn't have to be like the worst of the worst, but it could be even something small. And the interesting thing is they don't realize this when they come to work with me. They just think, "Oh, I've got this food problem. Sam helps with this food problem." But once we get into the work, it's like it's actually not. It has nothing to do with the food. So that's one reason. A lot of it is just purely self worth stuff, and that's like kind of like the umbrella, term of everything. But it's like I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough as I am. I need to make myself skinny in order to feel significant. That was my story in particular.
Oh,
It's like I need
yeah.
if I'm a certain weight, then I'm going to feel loved. Then I'm going to be validated. Then I'm going to feel worthy. And so they're externalizing a very internal issue, which is keeping people stuck in that cycle of always trying to get something outside of themselves to fill the feeling of lack of worth or
Mhm.
inadequacy. And that's a dangerous place to be because we're never going to find that in anything that we do.
Mm.
Anything. Like this, and I'm sure your listeners
Yeah.
know this more than anyone. It's like we have got to self generate that like self worth and happiness, and no one's going to give that to us. And so I think that's a huge one. That's like we're constantly chasing shiny balls. We're constantly um, trying to figure out how to fill our voids. Disconnection from the self, disconnection from our bodies and from our souls is a huge one. When we fundamentally don't know the difference between an emotional hunger cue and a physical hunger cue, and we're confused on the signals our body is giving us, it's very difficult to honor what we need if there's so much confusion. And so a lot of us don't feel safe in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so we have this like resistance to be in our body. Therefore, when there's a resistance to be in our body, we then can't have the communication to figure out what our body needs. Therefore, we can't honor it properly. And so that's another way that we can get stuck in the cycle of obsessive dieting and restricting and overeating and over exercising. So that's a few. A few.
Why do you think we equate being thin with happiness or success?
It's interesting. It's like nurture versus nature
Uh-huh.
kind of conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a society where we have so much pressure to look a certain way. We have so much pressure to make money. We have so much pressure to be married by the time you're 30 and have your first kid by the time you're 32. And all,
Mm.
there's these structures
Yeah.
that are in our society that are very spoken about, and we're trying to fit ourselves into those structures. And because of the way humans have evolved and the planet's evolved and things are evolving and unfolded, we don't fit, like humans literally don't fit those structures anymore. It's impossible for us to. And so like there's this like idea of what beauty is, which is a very distorted, it's a broken model, but we're still trying to fit into that, which is giving us incredible pressure and stress. And I think with like the integration of technology and Instagram and comparison, we're always comparing our shitty day to someone's highlight reel, which
Yeah.
creates so much, inner tension and chaos. So yeah, I mean, that's just a few of the reasons.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a larger conversation, and I think it's one that especially in the field of health and wellness, doesn't really get talked about so much. I think it's kind of generalized, but still, I think it's glossed over and not really sort of, it's
Mm,
not placed as a topic of importance, really, that I found anyway. It's like
mm,
people don't talk about
mm,
that being so sort of the underlying current of why people want to, especially women in particular, why we want to get fit or look a certain way, or
mm,
if it's not something that we can fully embody because there's something else underneath, which is what you were talking about, why we create
mm,
barriers and why we sort of sabotage ourselves. When I was working a lot with um,
totally.
uh, clients and students doing health coaching, and there was always more of the underlying current that was the issue, not so much what you were eating. It's like eat healthy food, like eat vegetables, have some fruit, like don't eat past
Mm,
a certain time, allow your body time to digest, eat things that are
yeah.
not processed, eat clean, those types of things.
Mm,
It's like the general knowledge that everybody knows, but it's the things that
mm-hmm.
we do when we get triggered, right? Like those trigger points that make us feel like, oh well, I'm never going to look this way, or I'm never going to feel good, or I'm never going to get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That creates those moments where we're hungry for something else, right?
That's it. That's it. Yeah. I mean, I can literally paint a circle on the ground and tell someone to step in it, but unless they have an emotional reason why they want change, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so all of these like diets and exercise plans and miracle this and whatever, it's like none of that stuff actually works. And let me like get into the word works, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you may lose weight for a month. You may lose 20 pounds in 30 days or whatever these things are, promoting. But as soon as you stop doing that because it's not fundamentally sustainable, you are going to gain all the way back plus more.
Yeah.
And so the way that my like, if I could do one thing on this planet, it's like revolutionize the weight loss industry. And what I mean by that is rather than figuring out what you think you should have and what diet you think you should have based on what, Kim Kardashian or the rest of the world is doing, it's allowing your body to tell you what you should have. And like, so fun, like flipping the switch on that. So, and the more integrated we are into our bodies, the more we listen to our bodies, the more self-care and self-love that we have, the easier it is to create that channel of communication from our bodies to our minds. And so the deeper I go into my self-love journey, the more connected I get into myself and my soul, the easier it is for me to understand what is good for me and what is not good for me. And that is going to be wildly different than your situation. Right?
Yeah.
So lately my body's been like, meat's not really sitting well, and whether that's like a spiritual thing, whatever it is, it's like my body is telling me meat's not the thing right now. And so I'm like, okay, cool, got it, noted. I'm going to slowly eliminate that out of my diet, not restrictively altogether cold turkey, but cold turkey, no pun intended, literally. But slowly take that out, right? And like,
Right.
same thing with alcohol. Like my body's been like, girl, that's not a thing. Like you can't have that. It's not good for you. It literally is not good for me to have that. And there's like other things like that, for instance, that I am like, okay, noted, can't have that. That's how we're actually do. And so rather than me being like, let me think what cookie cutter diet I should put on my body communicates to me what it needs and what it wants. And in order to get there, there's like a certain amount of work to do, to like trust your body again, get your body to trust you again, like work on self-love, work on your worth, because, if we hate our bodies, why would we listen to them?
Yeah,
So it is a
exactly.
matter of like learning to love your body again.
Totally.
So.
You know what? And that I know that you do a lot of work around trusting your intuition and listening to your body, and
Mm-hmm.
that this kind of work. So tell us a little bit about what that sort of looks like for you, or I mean, you obviously told us an example, but how can the listeners begin the steps to finding that or following that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I just dial home in a strong way is like, we really just need to be honest with ourselves to start with. Like, really take a look at your life when in terms of food in your body and go, how, like, honestly, how is my relationship to my body? Honestly, how do I fundamentally feel about being in my body? And if
Mm-hmm.
the answer is, I hate my body, it sucks, I feel horrible, that's okay. But we need honesty, because without that, we can't have traction. We can't do anything about it. So, one of my biggest, one of the things that I really don't like about the body positivity movement is that we have a bunch of people preaching, love your body, love your body, love your body.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful, and I love the intentionality behind that movement. But what if for a woman who like looks at that after 30 years of hating her body, and she's like, oh, I guess I need to love my body now. And then so she like almost like fakes herself into thinking that she loves her body when she really doesn't. And so I always say, it's okay if you hate your body, but we need honesty, because without that, we can't have traction. There's nowhere to start from, because we're constantly in denial. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's a very like backward, if people are thinking like, "Oh, I hate your body. What are you talking about?" But it's like, we just need to be honest with where we're at. Acceptance is everything. When we start from a place of like, I'm going to accept what is right now, even though it's not how I truly want to feel and be, but let me just accept what is. Um, yeah, so I would encourage everyone who's listening right now just to like take some time after you listen to this podcast and maybe just write down, how do I truly feel about being in my body? What does it actually feel like to be in my body? That may be like uncomfortable, uneasy,
Mm-hmm.
gross, whatever, and it's totally fine. Like, whatever answer you have, that's beautiful. It's like, let's just get a clear picture of what is, then we can create. Okay, where do we want to go? Like, how do I want to feel in my body? How do I want my relationship to food to change? So just taking like a very clear picture. Getting into our body, our body is the portal to the truth. Like, everything, it's a cliche thing to say, but it's just the truth. Your body has the answers. The answers are within. Like, I'm not going to tell you the answers. You are going to tell yourself the answers. And so what ways can we start to integrate and start to feel into our body? I love, breath work, and I love movement. And I know you're big on this, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how can we move the energies in our body to feel more connected into our souls?
Yeah.
So I would say starting with those two things is like two huge things for people, just to start to get the felt sense of feeling in their body, because the majority of us are not to our feelings.
Mm. Yeah, why
Yeah.
you've worked with so many people at this point, and you just
Mm-hmm.
gave us an example of drawing the circle, and if somebody's not willing to get in, like, you can't really, if they're not willing to change, nothing's going to change. So,
Mm-hmm.
why do you think we make the same mistakes? Like, do you work with people that have been time and time again, they have a pattern and they just can't seem to break it? Or do you have a pattern that you feel like you've tried and tried and tried and you just have a hard time breaking it? Like, why do you think that happens?
Yeah, Rosie, I think the biggest thing that I see time and time again is people's resistance to getting out of their heads and getting into their bodies.
Mm,
And that is why women feel so frustrated and overwhelmed and inundated, is because they're taking it in, right? They're logical, they're smart women, but they're like, okay, got that concept. Yeah, that makes sense. And they're all soaking it in their minds, but they're not integrating it into their bodies. And when they don't do that, then they just gotta continue more. They gotta try harder. They gotta force more. And it's like, that's not the way we do this. We literally need to feel in order to heal. And when we're not yet willing to feel into our body, we keep it all up in our minds, because it's safer there, because that's what we know, right?
yeah.
And so when we can figure out, like, what is the resistance to feeling? Like, why does it scare you to feel? Like, let's talk about
Mm,
that conversation. And maybe, maybe when you were 6 years old, you felt your feelings, and your parents said, like, stop being so sensitive, stop crying, stop. And you kind of like took that in as, if I emote, if I show high levels of emotionality, I will not be loved. And that was like the story that you made up at a very young age that you've been like reinforcing your entire life. So 40 years later, however many years later, you're like, oh, if I emote, if I show high levels of emotionality, I'm not going to be loved, right? So
Yeah.
it's like really getting clear about like what is our story around feeling. You know, it's interesting. I grew up as I still am a very sensitive person. Like my body sensitive to like, you know, foods, I'm emotional, I'm sensitive to energies, I'm an empath. So like I have an extremely sensitive system. It's like crazy. I can barely leave the house. No, I'm just kidding. I've learned how to like energy block. I'm like, I don't want to be an energy vampire. So like when I was younger, like I would cry at everything. I'd get angry, I'd be upset, but then I'd also be super happy. So I had like my spectrum of emotionality was like very broad. And so as a child, my mom and dad would always say to me, they're like, stop being so sensitive, Sam. Like, you know, stop crying. Like, why are you getting so angry? And like, it was not malicious what they were doing, but like the way I consumed what they were saying made me just like repress and suppress my emotions for so long.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was like hanging out with my mom the other day. I'm at their place right now in Vancouver. And we were going to a bridal shower, and I was like talking about something, and she just started to me. She's like, "Sam, why do you have to be so sensitive and emotional all this time?" And I'm like, "Oh, dang, that's the shit you told me as a child." That made me like you know stuff down my emotions. But it's just funny, like hearing these things as an adult, the things that we took in as a child that actually created like issues in our bodies.
I think that more people need to really do some self-inquiry to find out where these types of things are coming from in general, right? I mean, that's
Totally.
really the
Yeah.
basis of this. What one of the things I like to talk about is about transformation, right? And this could be in the form not only like physical, but mental, emotional, spiritual even. And I always say that to
Mm-hmm.
see far, we first must be willing to look close. So in what domain of your life have you chosen to take a closer look?
Yeah, in my life,
Mm-hmm.
have I taken a closer look? It's so interesting. Like I'm on this like path right now of like taking full ownership and responsibility for everything that happens in my life, which is like really exhausting. And sometimes I just like put the table and be a victim. But like when I can understand that like my external world, everything about my external world is a direct reflection. Getting chills just like even like thinking about it and talking about it is a direct reflection of exactly what's going on in my internal world.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
like it's like I have to take responsibility for every single interaction, and every person that comes into my life is there for a reason to teach me a lesson. It's all divinely created, and I'm creating it. Like I am co-creating this masterpiece with the universe, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to play the game? How am I going to play the game? Because if I'm going to be a victim and I'm going to have to choose the unfolding of what is, life's going to suck. But if I play the game properly and I understand like everything's an opportunity, everything's a learning lesson, everything's a reflection of my inner world, and I truly own that and take responsibility for it, although painful at times and highly exhausting, it allows me to have so much ease with life. So I always ask my clients, I'm like, how are you playing the game? Like, how are you actually playing the game? Because really, life is just a game. That's like, we're here for a very short amount of time. That's it. We only have this one life. And then, well, I don't know, maybe we have other ones, but who knows? Whatever. All I know right now is like, I'm here right now. And how I, you know, when I die and my energy goes elsewhere, that's another story. But for right now, in this physical human form, how am I playing the game? How am I showing up every single day? And it's not always easy. You know, it's not always easy to take full responsibility for the things that happen and the conversations that we have and the triggers that we go through. But like, we have to understand that that's all happening for the greater good.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. How did you get to be so wise, Sam? How? Tell us.
Oh gosh, I don't know. You know, it's so funny. In some areas of my life, oh God, if you followed me around with a camera, you'd be like, I cannot believe you just did that. But then I'm like really good with like emotional intelligence. So like ask me to cook a meal and you'll probably die.
Well, no, I mean that's hilarious, but that's I think just part of us being evolving human beings. I think that the minute that we think we have it all figured out, or we say we have it figured
Hmm.
out, we have no idea what we're doing. So
Yeah,
that's always
exactly.
been something that I've found. What has been the biggest lesson in your life? I'm curious.
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, fall in love with as many things as possible and don't be attached. Like that's the lesson that I'm still really working on. It's like, how can I fully just fall in love with this person, this situation, this whatever, and be so present and open to what's going on right now and not being attached, it being like that forever. And that for me, like I can even feel anxiety in my stomach when I say that, because when it's like when something is really good, you're like, oh, I just want this forever. Whether that's like a relationship or way business is going or I don't know, whatever, like whatever it is. But my work right now is like, how can I, because before I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I love this, but I'm going to withhold myself and not give myself fully to it, because what if it gets taken away from me? With fear of abandonment stuff definitely like runs in my body somewhere.
Mm,
And that's why I have these like tendencies, right? It's like, and so my work right now is like fully surrendering, fully loving, fully falling in love with whatever makes me feel good, and not, and just appreciating it for what it is in that moment, knowing that it could change in 5 seconds, and
yeah.
whether that's like, it sounds so silly, but whether that's like enjoying a cup of coffee or like falling in love with a man or whatever it is, it's like that idea of like non-attachment is like my work, and it's really been like the most profound lesson in my life, and it's allowed me to just be open and receptive to what is, and just allow more beauty and love to come into my life, knowing that yeah, it could leave tomorrow, and that's okay, because there's going to be more coming.
Well, that being said, what are some words of wisdom that you live by?
Oh, oh
I'm getting
man.
all
So
the good
just
ones. I'm getting all the good. good-
I would say just like eat as many tacos, because tacos are awesome and they make you happy. So
Are we related? I need to check to see if we're related because I think we
I
are.
I literally I seriously think you are. We are. When we spoke on my podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I love you already. Yeah, words of wisdom. I think. Oh my God, this is like such a great question. The more I realize how life works, the more I believe in magic. Truly, like we do live in a magical existence, and there is so much more that is happening that does not meet the eye. That is profound, and we feel it, right?
Yeah.
We just feel it in our existence. We feel it in our bodies, and the beautiful thing is, the more open we are to that happening, to that magic happening, to those synchronicities happening, the more that they happen, the more that we see them. And call it spirit, God, universe, whatever, does not communicate through words per se, but communicates through signs and energies and synchronicities. And so just being open to that stuff, and also we see more of that when we're more connected to ourselves. And so that question that I said is, what is your honest relationship to your body? What is your honest relationship to yourself? Like, for those listening, I mentioned fear of abandonment, but like fear of abandonment is a very real thing. It runs like I think 80% of my community has this when we talk about it. But we can never abandon ourselves unless we consciously do it, and I abandoned myself for years. I abandoned myself. I thought I knew better. I tried to, logic my way out of situations. I betrayed my body. I hated my body. Yada yada yada.
Hmm.
Coming back into the self is like literally like coming home. Like I feel at home again. And it's like it's crazy to even like if someone was to play this podcast to me like 4 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know who that is, because that's effed up. Like there's no way you're gonna feel that. But I do, and so I wanna like really speak to the people who don't feel that.
Hmm.
We all have it in us. It's so inherent. It's how we're fundamentally supposed to live, is in our bodies at home connected to self. And we've become so disconnected from the self that it's creating so much tension, animosity, and chaos in our lives, not just in our personal lives, but in the world. So to wrap it up in a pretty little bow, coming back to the self allows us to see more magic in the world because we're open to it. When we're connected to ourselves, we're not pessimistic about the world. We can be open to it and just have more of like a profound understanding of how the world works.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so, I mean, and this is like taking a life of self-inquiry and asking the right questions and just your own intuition to come to this place. So I thank you for that. And I appreciate you for that and for bringing that into the world and for working with people and letting them get in
Yeah.
touch with that.
It
What are
is my pleasure.
it's part of this too is this idea of you said this earlier and you're like I'm not going to say something that in a sense I work the same way. It's like I'm not going to tell you something you don't already know, right? You're like you already have the
Yeah.
answers, and it's really about getting in touch with that voice, that
Yeah.
wisdom within each of us,
Yeah.
to listen to
Yeah.
that voice and not the voice that's spewing out negativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I tell my clients this sometimes and it's like kind of interesting. But I'm like, stop consuming my content. Stop listening to my podcast. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I don't give this advice to everybody, but like sometimes, it's necessary because they're like, when's the next podcast coming out? When's the next book coming out? What do you think about this? And I'm like, I want you just to stop relying on me for your happiness for a moment. And like, I literally don't have the answers. You do. So there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to be any more profound than what comes from your own body.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's so good.
yeah.
So I always like to ask this question because I feel like during our teenage years, we go through these pivotal moments, and sometimes we look back and think, "Oh, if only I would have." I'm not the kind of person that likes to
Mm,
should all over myself or like dwell on the past, but
mm,
but I do like to ask the question, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
mm, mm. Stop dyeing your hair platinum blonde. I was. God, it was so
Oh,
bad.
that's so good.
I am a recovering perfectionist. So
Ooh.
when I was 15 years old, I, oh my God, like the mask of perfectionism is heavy, y'all. It is so frigging heavy. And when I was 15 years old, was I tried to be so perfect. I wanted to be the best actress. I wanted to be the best dancer. I wanted to be the best dress at school. I wanted to have the best platinum blonde highlights. I wanted to, date the best looking guy in school. Like I was such a perfectionist. I would not let myself be messy. I would not let myself be like unfiltered or unedited. And now I'm like the complete opposite, which feels well, actually, no, I'm not the complete opposite. I lie. I still have perfectionist tendencies, but I like have that shit on lock and know that I'm doing it and I'm really
Yeah.
working on it. But it's come leaps and bounds since I was 15. And so I would just have, I would sit her down with a nice cup of chai tea and I'd be like, look, you are hustling for your worth right now and all of these things that you're doing outside of yourself. Find the peace inside your body. Find the worth inside your body because that's where it is. It's not in this gorgeous boy that you're dating in your platinum blonde highlights. Like, find it elsewhere. And so, like, that's that's the conversation I had with her. She was a cool chick. She just tried way too hard.
She tried way too hard. So saying that and knowing that, what advice would your 65-year-old self tell you now?
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so I had this business idea yesterday, and whoever's listening, I don't care if you steal it because I might not do it anyway. But I want to create a podcast or like an Instagram account or a YouTube channel or something called like Ask Your Gram, like, and it's like about like I just interview grandmas and talk about like the advice that grandmas would give like us, like 20, 30, 40-year-olds. Anyway, so my 65-year-old self. Oh man, okay, hang on. I just gotta think about what I'm gonna do when I'm 65 first. Like, I need to put myself in those shoes.
Oh my goodness.
65 years old. I'll be married. I'll probably have a litter of children. You know what it is. Here's the deal right now. I work extremely hard, and I have a big mission, and I work on it every single day, but I put so much pressure on myself. Like, I really do. And everyone in my life, I have an incredible support system, and they're like, Sam, you don't have to work so hard, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like, it makes me emotional, even like, even sharing this,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, I work my freaking can off, like, constantly. Like, even last night, I was at a rehearsal dinner for my girlfriend's wedding. And I noticed myself at the rehearsal dinner for her wedding obsessing over my fucking funnel, you know, like I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that this email goes there and this email goes there, and I have to make sure that like this team member is doing this, and I'm like, come on, like that's crazy. And so I like checked myself. I was like, hey, you know, like just breathe, just be present, just look these people in the eye. Like these are your best friends in the world who you don't get to see very often. Who gives a flying F about your funnel, you know?
Right.
And so I know this, and even my today self would tell my last week self this same advice. You know, it's like trust the flow. Everything's happening perfectly in perfect timing. Don't hustle and force it so much. It's all happening for you. And I fundamentally know this, but I that's the advice my 65-year-old self would give this version of me, because like I'm a hustler to a fault, and I'm really trying to shift that, because it's like I have this huge mission. I know I'm going to help millions of people. I know I have a lot of responsibility. You know, I have a team. I have a team that works for me. I've got all my clients, and it's like there's a lot going on. And I know I'm so unconditionally supported by the universe that like it doesn't matter if shit hits the fan, it's still going to be okay. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Sam, you're the best. I appreciate you. And just as I ask all of my guests on the show is, how do you feel radically loved, and what do you radically love?
Oh, that's so good. Okay. So my love language is acts of service. So anytime someone does anything for me, it like literally my heart like explodes. It's like the best feeling ever. You know, even if like, you know, someone takes my car and fills it up without me knowing, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that makes me feel so good, or like whatever it is. So that's how I feel radically loved. How I radically love is I'm like literally obsessed with humans, and so I just love listening, and I just love loving people in person. You know, I love like asking questions, and I love like getting into their stories, and I love like really hearing them and really feeling them. And that for me is like my greatest expression of love. And like people, the feedback I get from a lot of people who I meet, they're like, I've never had a conversation with someone who gave a shit as much as you do and was as present with me. And I'm like, that feels really, really good. And like, that makes me feel really good, like being that, because like, it's like, I'm not doing it for any other reason, but because I love it. You know, I just love it. Even like this morning, you know, I was at Starbucks, and I'm like grabbing my coffee and like having a conversation with a barista, and like I'm like genuinely interested in what she's doing in her life, because it's so radically different than mine. And it's like, you know, having it just gives me perspective. You know, it gave me this moment of like, I get to have like a 2-minute conversation and really get insight into your life, which is radically different from mine, and it just puts everything into perspective. So yeah, that would be my answer. I love
that. Wow, thank you so much. That's so good. Sam, where can these listeners get all of your information? Tell us where to go. How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah.
I know you've got some great information on your website and videos and stuff. Yeah. So I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of everything is on hungryforhappiness.com, and then we're pretty active on Instagram as well. So at Hungry for Happiness is our what's that thing called handle, and then at Samantha Skelly is like my personal one, where I basically just like take my feelings and put them on paper. It's not really food and body stuff. It's more so like my journey through this existence. so you can follow both on there.
Wow. Okay, that's great. And all of those links will be on the show notes. So if you're listening to this If you just click info, all those links will be on there, so you can just click on them and you can get in touch with Sam and everything that she's doing, and you listen to her podcast and just how amazing and incredible she is and how gifted we are to have her, not only on this podcast, but just on this planet.
Aw, you're so sweet. I love you. You're so sweet.
I love you. You're the best. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here.
You are so welcome. It's a total pleasure.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to continue to do this. Please share this with your friends. Email us, message us on Instagram at Rosie Acosta or on Twitter at Rosie Acosta. Subscribe on iTunes, write a review. We love doing this, so please help us continue to keep this podcast going. Thanks for listening.